Hey everyone, and welcome back. Ready to have your minds blown?
Always.
I think this time we really might because we're diving into something called Cult.
That's right.
And it's like having a secret decoder ring for the whole world. You ever wonder why some movies just click and others don't? Or how a song can get stuck in your head for like a week?
Yeah,
Well, we're going to uncover those hidden patterns with the help of our Cult guru.
that's me.
So no secret handshakes or exclusive clubs, right?
Well, not quite. But we do have what we call fractal holon partons.
Okay, now hold on a second. That sounds a little intimidating.
It's simpler than it sounds, I promise. Just think of them like Lego bricks that build up everything in the universe.
Okay, Legos, I understand. So you're saying we can use these fractal holon partons to explain anything from like a tiny cell to a huge blockbuster movie.
Exactly. It's all built with these blocks.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. But how do we go from a single brick to, say, building the Millennium Falcon? I mean, that takes a ton of very specific connections.
And that's where Cult gets really interesting. There are three basic laws that govern how these building blocks combine and interact to create that complexity.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me. What's the first law?
The first law is integrate upwards. Just like those Legos, smaller units combine to form larger ones.
So it's all about building up layer by layer.
Exactly. Letters make words, words make sentences, sentences make this whole discussion.
Right, okay. So it's all about building up.
Yeah.
But isn't there more to it than just stacking things on top of each other?
Absolutely. Things get much more interesting with the second law.
Ooh, okay. Hit me with a number 2.
Compete and cooperate sideways.
Compete and cooperate sideways.
Yes. Imagine all the characters in your favorite movie. They're all vying for screen time, right?
Sure.
So they're competing, but they're also working together to tell a larger story.
Okay.
The same thing happens in an ecosystem. Different species compete for the same resources, but they also rely on each other to maintain that balance.
So it's like this delicate dance between competition and cooperation, right? All these units are pushing and pulling while they're still part of something much bigger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that brings us to our third and final law.
Yeah.
Command and control downwards.
Command and control downwards. Okay, I think I can already see where this is going.
The larger system influences the smaller parts within it.
Right, got it. So a classic example of that is like a director guiding the actors, or say a conductor leading an orchestra. There's a hierarchy of influence.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me see if I've got this straight. We've got these building blocks, these fractal holon partons, and they integrate upwards to create bigger systems. They compete and cooperate with each other at the same level, and then they're also influenced by the larger systems above them. Did I miss anything?
You got it. And the really cool part is you can apply these three laws to understand any complex system, whether it's a biological organism, a cultural trend, or even something as, well, seemingly simple as a movie.
All right, that's where I want to dig in a little deeper. You mentioned movies. Give me an example of how Cult can change the way we watch a film.
Well, let's take a classic like Labyrinth. Remember that scene early on where Sarah has to choose between the left and right door?
Oh, yeah. She hesitates for a minute because she's not sure which way to go.
And that tiny scene actually mirrors the entire film structure. It's Sarah facing all these choices, trying to find her way through this really complex world. That's what we call in Cult fractal storytelling. The smaller narratives reflect the larger whole.
Why? I would never have picked up on that. So it's like those Russian nesting dolls, but with narratives instead of those little wooden figures.
Precisely. And here's where it gets really, really interesting. You see, there's been research showing that movies structured this way with clear, fractal patterns tend to be more successful at the box office.
No way. Are you saying there's a secret formula for a hit movie hidden within Cult?
Well, it's not quite that simple. But there are definitely patterns. Research has found that movies that are approaching 90 minutes in length with roughly 90 scenes tend to perform better. It's like there's a natural rhythm that just resonates with audiences.
That's amazing. So Cult can help us understand movies, but what about music? This is a question I need answered because I'm a huge music nerd. So how does Cult apply to something like songwriting?
Okay, well, think about how a song is born. It usually starts with a simple melody or a rhythm or even just a few words. That, my friend, is your first fractal holon parton.
Okay, so the initial spark of inspiration, that's like our first Lego brick. But how does it go from that to a full-blown track?
Through those three laws that we talked about, the initial idea starts to integrate upwards. So you start to add more melodies, harmonies, different layers of instrumentation. Then suddenly you've got a verse, a chorus, maybe even a bridge.
Right. And then all those different parts, the drums, the vocals, the guitar riffs, they all start to compete and cooperate. They're vying for space, but they're also working together. It's like they each have their own role to play in the song.
Exactly. And as the song takes shape, that overall structure, the arrangement, it all starts to command and control those individual parts. It's like the producer steps in and says, okay, the drums need to be louder here, or the vocals need to be softer there to get that desired impact.
Wow. I've never thought about songwriting like this before, but it totally makes sense. It's like each song is its own little Ev cult universe. But, we've talked about movies, music. What about us? Our bodies are pretty complex systems too, right?
Absolutely. In fact, the human body is a prime example of Ev cult in action. Think about it. We're made up of trillions of cells.
Ah.
Each one is a fractal Hokan parton.
So even at that microscopic level, those three laws are at work. The cells are integrating, competing, commanding.
Exactly. Cells group together to form tissues. Tissues form organs.
Yeah.
Organs make up systems, and all those systems interact to make you.
It's mind-blowing to think that the same principles that govern a hit song also apply to the very building blocks of life. So speaking of which, what about AI? How does something like ChatGPT fit into all of this?
That's where things get really meta. You see, when ChatGPT was first asked to explain Ev cult, it struggled. It just couldn't quite grasp the concept. But after being fed tons of information about Ev cult articles, research, the works, it started to understand. Now it can accurately explain the idea of fractal Holon partons and the three laws.
So AI, in a way, had to learn Ev cult just like we are.
In a way, yes. It shows that these principles are powerful enough to be recognized and even replicated by artificial intelligence.
That's both amazing and a little bit unnerving at the same time. But hey, I guess if AI can learn it, it must be important, right?
Absolutely. And that leads us to one of the most exciting applications of Ev cult, the ethicizer. Have you heard of it?
The ethicizer. It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. It does. It really does. But tell me more. What exactly does the ethicizer do?
Well, it's essentially a tool that uses Ev cult to analyze and improve ethical decision-making.
Okay, so instead of figuring out why Jaws was a blockbuster, it's tackling these big ethical dilemmas. How does that even work?
Well, you have to remember that ethical decisions, they aren't made in a vacuum, right? They're influenced by everything from our own personal values and our cultural norms to the specific situation that we find ourselves in. The ethicizer looks at all of these factors as fractal Holon partons.
Oh, there they are again, those building blocks.
Exactly. And by understanding how those blocks interact, we can start to see these patterns in our own ethical decision-making, the good and the bad.
So it's like we're holding up an Ev cult magnifying glass to our own moral compass.
You got it. And, the potential applications of this are really incredible. Imagine using the ethicizer to design AI that is ethically sound right from the beginning.
Oh, wow.
Or to help businesses make more responsible choices. There's even potential for using this in our everyday lives, just to help people navigate those really tricky ethical gray areas that we all encounter.
That's incredible. So we've gone from trying to decode hit movies to now potentially building a more ethical future.
That's the power of Ev cult. It's not just about understanding the past, but using those insights to try and create a better future.
I have to admit, when we first started this deep dive, I thought Ev cult was going to be way over my head, but you've made it so clear, so engaging. It's like you've given me a whole new way of looking at the world.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. It really is fascinating stuff, and it really is everywhere once you know what to look for.
It is. Now I'm seeing fractal Holon partons everywhere I look.
Yeah.
In books, in conversations, even in my own thoughts.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
It's a framework for understanding this complexity. And let's face it, the world is full of it.
It definitely is. So for our listeners out there who are ready to, embrace their own inner Ev cult detective, where should they start? What's one thing they can take away from our deep dive today to start seeing those hidden patterns in their own lives?
That's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
I would say just start paying attention to the connections. The next time that you're watching a movie, listening to a song, or even just having a conversation, look for those echoes between the small parts and the bigger picture. Just ask yourself, how do the individual pieces contribute to the whole? Are there any repeating patterns, any themes? I think you might be surprised at what you discover.
That is some fantastic advice. I am ready to grab my Ev cult decoder ring and start deciphering everything around me. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey today.
The pleasure was all mine.
And for everyone listening out there, keep those minds curious and those perspectives shifting. Until next time, Happy exploring.